The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine. I'll be your webinar facilitator today. I'd like to welcome everyone to the HVAC websites designed to maximize lead conversion webinar. As a brief reminder, all lines are currently on mute to prevent background noise. If you have questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them into your chat box. We'll be happy to answer at the end of the webinar. This afternoon, it's my pleasure to welcome Jennifer Bagley, CEO of CI Web Group. As you know, CI Web Group is one of our preferred vendors, helping dealers be much more successful out in their own business. So without further ado, Jennifer, you may now begin the webinar.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine. I appreciate you. All right, you guys, I appreciate everybody taking time, as always, to work on your business instead of in it as we're approaching the getting out of the shoulder season and moving into summer. It's an important time for everyone to start thinking about their website and what they can do in order to allow their website to play a greater role in their overall business growth, as well as in operations. So we're going to talk a little bit about the details behind a website, the process, some of the elements to consider. And I'll just start by saying there is no time when I would evaluate a website and say it's perfect, it's done. And it doesn't matter if we're doing it or another agency is doing it. So it's important to remember that it's a living being, and the more you add to it, the more you continue to invest in it, the better it's going to perform year over year over year. So just because something is not done on your website, I'm never going to say that that's because the agency did a bad job. It's just that maybe you didn't subscribe to that yet, or you haven't had enough time to do that yet. So everybody's got an opportunity to continue to reinvest and continue to grow. Even if you have a great website, there's still more to do. So that being said, when it comes to planning your project, as far as design and development and why you need a website, you always want to start with the goals and work backwards. Everything that you do is going to help you make progress in one way or another. So if you're looking to have traffic to your site, of course you're going to need marketing. But if the website development, which is the code behind the website, is not properly developed, which is a different kind of a resource than a designer, then the website may be prevented from generating traffic. It might not be able to. So that's something that's important. Even when it comes down to development, it's never enough. You can always do more. There's always ways to further optimize a website's development. Most small and mid-sized business owners, when you're first getting started, you're looking to have good. As far as getting to great, then that's a much different investment. It's a different set of resources. You just want to keep improving. Next is design. If you're looking to convert the traffic, if you want to get that potential customer to take action, to move forward, then design's going to be something that's very important to consider. The lack of design can both help and hurt a company. So this is when you kind of get into a point where it's a fine line. When it comes to design, a lot of it is personal perception, but in addition to that, design can actually cause a website to fail. Having too many images, too big of images, having too many design elements, too many containers, too much can hurt your website. So it's not always about the bigger is better. It's just this kind of, again, it's a fine line. Next, if you ever want your website to rank on a search engine, meaning your website or a page on your website becomes an option when consumers are looking for something such as AC installation or AC replacement or repair, or furnace installation, furnace replacement, you got to have a page of content. It's like the products in a giant store. If you don't have the content for the services you want to sell inside the store, then no one can buy it. They're not going to find it. Same thing with the website. Content is usually the #1 most important part of a marketing plan, but it's also the least budgeted for out of everything. and it's the #1 most time-consuming process. The content has to be unique. It has to be a certain number of characters. Finding somebody that knows how to write for both search engines, for consumers to get them to move forward, as well as who knows the technical elements of your specific products and services is typically a challenge. So you're usually going to get most of what you need, and then you got to add to it. You got to continue to develop it and further define that content. So it's not just designed for search engines, but your customization, your language, your words, your culture, the uniqueness that comes from your company needs to be part of that as well. So it's usually a combined effort between two. In addition, we got to keep the website interactive. We want to keep them on the website. We want to make them stick around for a little bit instead of just coming and bouncing. And again, additional functionality, there's pros and cons to that. So when it comes down to it, it is just really part personal perception and preference, part technical aptitude of who's doing this, and then a piece of it is testing. A piece of it is, science and testing and figuring out. But when you define your goals, what is your true intent? Are you trying to grow the business, acquire more leads and opportunities? Are you trying to improve your operational efficiencies, stay more connected with your existing customers, to increase upsells, add-on services, and referrals? All of these different priorities require something different as a part of the overall plan. So typically what happens is by establishing what your priorities are, that will help you with creating the selection criteria, and the criteria that you want to have on your website in order to accomplish your priorities is going to define what kind of a budget and how long your timeline is going to be. Not all websites are equal, and they, depending on the volume, the size of that site, it's going to take more time and or resources, which means you may need to have a larger budget. So part of this also includes working backwards, scaling, identifying what your budget size is, and then working backwards towards your goals and saying, if X is my budget, what all can I have for X? And then you're prioritizing some of those things. So first I want to start with the process. Behind this slide, there's a background image in here that is actually representative of a workflow for a website design project. And it looks complicated. Why? Because it is. If you're doing this correctly and you have custom design and a content management system and a workflow and you understand the different buyers' personas and how they buy, and you're trying to make the website work for various search engines, various search devices. All of these things are if-then statements that allow a team to prioritize, if you have this, then we need to do this. If you don't, then we need to do this. If you want to achieve this, then we need to do this. And so it gets really complex. And then in the middle of it, you have search engines and these different size devices, mobile devices, tablet devices, computers, and so forth, that all kind of throw a wrench in it because they have their own requirements, even outside of yours. First thing I can tell you about the process is you got to commit to it. My mother gave me a good snapshot when I decided I wanted to become an entrepreneur and I wanted to leave my six-figure position and all of the benefits associated with it and start a company. And she said, Jen, it's going to be hard. Like, if it wasn't hard, everybody could do it. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't have a 3% success rate for small businesses, hitting the tax rules the first year. So, her whole point is, if you know it's going to be hard, smile through the process. Don't make it miserable. Just leave it at hard. So that's first and foremost. So this guide is a typical project plan that accounts for the top major milestones and critical path, which means that it's highlighted in red. Okay, major milestones are all of the different bullet points. If it's on a critical path, meaning if that doesn't get done, nothing else can. The project is going to be late. So I have those highlighted in red. First and foremost is, before you even start this process, is getting a solid understanding of where are you now. And that requires an evaluation, understanding what assets are you bringing to the table, how long your URL's been established, what are your competitors doing, how much content do you have, what percent of it is duplicate content, where are you currently ranking, how many reviews do you have, how active is your social media account, how many friends, fans, likes, followers, how many backlinks. There are hundreds of different elements that are going to help an agency understand the starting point. Where are you? Because obviously if you're starting on the ground floor and you're trying to get to the top floor, it's going to take you longer. But if you're starting in the middle, it's going to take you less time to get to the same space. So that's first and foremost. Once a thorough evaluation is done on the technical elements, it's really identifying either a budget and working backwards into the strategy that fits within that budget, or you're identifying a strategy and then guessing as far as if that budget is available. So usually what I'll tell a small business is start with budget. What are you comfortable with from a one-time investment and a monthly investment? And then work backwards to prioritize all the things you could have and pick out the things that are most important. Next is option selection. So when I refer to things, that's what I mean. Option selection. Building a site that has 5 sliders, which are the rotating graphics on the front. How many promotional images? Are you going to include sign up for maintenance, apply for financing? Are you going to have an integrated calendar with events on your website, an integrated promotions calendar? All of these pieces of functionality and things that need to be determined. How many pages you need to have transferred, how many images you need to have transferred, how many pages of content do you need to have written. That's really where you're identifying what options are out there and what should be priority right now based on my budget and the set strategy, so you know exactly what you're doing. At that point, you're going to have some kind of an agreement with an agency and payment. Those things mean you want to start. So that would be considered your start date. It doesn't mean that's when your project launches, because you still have a critical milestone, which is transferring all of the tribal knowledge about your business, your technical knowledge, what makes you unique, what's your unique selling proposition, what's the value proposition, what are your commitments as far as time, why do customers trust you, why should they trust you? All of those things need to be done in the transfer of that information needs to be given to your agency that you're working with. So in our world, we call them onboarding forms, and we have a minimum of 4 onboarding forms that need to be completed for each project. Sometimes it can go up to 15 depending on how many services. In our world, the combination of having the options selected, an agreement, payment made, and those onboarding forms, now we're time for a project launch meeting. Inside a project launch meeting, it's important that you guys really participate, and the goal is to establish very clear roles, clear expectations, and to identify what is the communication system used by the agency. So when I say roles, first and foremost, who on your team, who in your organization is going to be held accountable to the project, held accountable for attending the meetings, giving authorization, getting approvals, taking design work back to the team within your company to get approvals. Who is the one point person that's responsible? Same thing on your agency side. You might have a project manager that you work with. They're not the ones doing the design and the development and the SEO and the content and all of the other things, but that project manager's job is to communicate and coordinate all of the requirements of the project, status of the project, back to all of the in-house specialists, as well as back to you as a business owner, and continue to push the project forward. Expectations, again, knowing what you signed up for, what's in it. It's important, as important to know what you did not sign up for as it is what you did. And the reason I say that is if you just try and rush through this really fast, I need a website. What do you want the website to do? What needs to be in it? You may, because you don't have a list of or know what's not included, you may be missing the mark on something that could be extremely beneficial, but you just didn't know it was an option. So making sure you understand clearly, what did you buy, what's included, not I have a contract and I don't remember, I don't know what I'm paying for, and what's not there. And then the last piece of the project launch, you know, really I got to stress, you got to stick to the communications platform that your agency has in place. If you can imagine, an agency has hundreds of clients that are all sending in pieces of information. If all of those clients sent everything from text messages to emails to a snapped picture on their phone to a Facebook message and everything else, they're going to have a real nightmare trying to keep the project progressing and make sure everyone on their team has everything they need in order to make this a smooth process. So as much as you don't want to have to learn a project management system or use a help desk support system, it's important that you do. If you don't commit to filling out those onboarding forms, then you're essentially causing yourself strife and trouble down the road, because they're going to be guessing. And if they guess, you're not going to like it. If you're not using their preferred communication system and centralizing all the requests, you're also going to struggle, because it's going to be difficult for them to find things that you want to have happen, and you're going to feel like you're having to repeat yourself a lot. You're going to feel like you're not being heard. And it's not that you're not being heard, it's that you sent an email to somebody who's on vacation and it didn't make it to the next person. Email is a little overwhelming for most people these days. So you just want to keep everything that you want documented inside the communication system. And this also means avoiding telling everything over phone calls, because that also can get misconstrued. So just to save you some headaches, next, whoever is working on your project should be starting with a design of a home page. You need to have a look and feel that you're comfortable with, and you want to know what that, or you should want to know, what is the website going to look like before they ever start all the other complicated things. Usually you're going to have a set number of rounds of changes. So in our world, it's 3 rounds of changes. You submit those changes in the clearest format possible. So just hints on things to try and avoid. If you're making statements like, well, make it pop. That your version of pop and somebody else's version of pop might be different. In addition, if you are, you know, real quick to say, well, I don't like it, then you're going to be stuck until you're able to communicate, well, I don't really like this, but here's an example of something I do like, or I'd like to see it work more like this. So it's important that you stay positive and focused on where you want to go versus just pointing out where you don't want to go. Finally, that's approved. Now, once your design is approved, you know what your website's going to look like. You're good to go. So I have this little guy over here who says, shh, be very quiet. We're building a website. At that point, really go back to work. Go take care of your business. Don't freak out. They're moving for the most part. I've heard stories where they're not. But what should happen then is they set up your server, they configure everything, they're getting all of the software integrated, and the design moved to a developer. So it changes hands and moves to a different department, and that department will start developing the website. And it depends on, you know, do you have any extra functionality? Is there anything custom that's inside there, or is it standard? As far as how long that's going to take. Usually development of a pretty standard website is going to take around 30 to 45 days. And that's just the development. That's a coder sitting there and coding all of the elements of the entire design and all the different pages into a working content management system, something that, a website. At the same time, the designer will normally start working on your interior pages. What are those going to be designed? The sidebars, your sliders, your graphics. They're going to be doing all the accessorial designs, and those things can be done in tandem because it's going to mirror your home page with some small changes for the inside. Next, depending on what services you selected, you may have a content writer that starts working on writing content for you, and then it's going to depend. Are you ordering custom content where you actually have to go through an interview process and really explain what you want to have the content sound like, feel like, what your culture is, what unique things do you want to have included in it? Or are you staying out of the content writing process and you're just getting search engine optimized content, which is more heavily geared towards Google and not as custom? So you might want to customize that when you get it, or both. Once the development is complete, it's an empty shell. So that they've got to develop the website, and then you're going to have a shell. So all those little design elements are there, but if there's no content, there's nothing to fill it up. So a lot of times they're going to use dummy content, which is called lorem ipsum. It's essentially Italian code or text that and pictures that are all over the site to hold things, to hold those containers in place until you have legit content go in. Next is going to be content transfer, which means you have an existing website and they need to strip every single page off of that website, determine if it's duplicate content or not. They need to strip the code from behind it, and they need to transfer it to the new website. Those are pages, images, products, files, videos, and so forth. And that content transfer is going to play a really big role in determining how long the project is going to take it all. Finally, if your plan has included in it a content editor, this is totally different. Remember, whatever you already have on your existing website, that content's got to be transferred over to your new website, as long as it's not content that's in violation of Google's requirements. So if you have spelling errors, typos, all of that's going with it. It's going to go right to the new website. So I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't fix it, but the likelihood of having a budget for content writing, content transfer, design, and development, and then on top of that, hiring an editor to do all of the proofing and grammar and spelling and all the checks on your current content, it's just another resource that most people cannot afford to add right at the beginning. So it may be something either you and your team are taking a stab at, or do it later. Do it later. Let's at least get the main components done. So whatever you already have, it's going to be that and better. And then finally, after all of the content has been written and or transferred, you're in a first round review. And this is when you got to come to this meeting knowing there's going to be typos, there's going to be spelling errors. It's transferred content from my old website, which I already had, and it's going to the new one. In addition to that, this is when you're going to be working with the project manager to determine changes to headings, titles, maybe navigation flow, pictures, images, stuff like that. So you want to walk into that meeting with a collaborative mindset and a positive solution-based mindset to really work together to make those changes and not get frustrated because the second you open it up, there's something you don't like. That's normal. To iron those things out together is important. I always tell everybody when they're going through this process, all parties have to show up with more than an appetite. You got to show up, suit up, and participate. That's when you're going to feel comfortable. Other than that, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because this is quite a process and it's not something you do every day, so it takes a minute. I'll give you some samples of timelines, and this is important to consider, is depending on the number of pages you have in your project to transfer and or write, that's going to be one of the biggest elements, in addition to any custom functionality or custom coding, that's going to make the website project take a little longer. The number 2 is you guys just take longer. So it depends. If you're unable to commit to the process and get approvals back when they're needed for those critical milestones, then it's going to take longer. And if you have a whole bunch of content that needs to move over, let's say your website has 50 pages on it and you all of a sudden have, you know, another 100 pages you want to add or 600 images you want to add, that's going to add time to your project. So you absolutely can do that, but just know it's going to take a little bit longer. Let's move to the design process. When we're talking about design, there's some key elements you want to know where they go. So the header area of a website, that's everything in this top section right here. And pretty much every website has a header on it. And it's going to be identical, which means however the header is designed on the home page, it's going to be designed like that, identically through the entire rest of the website. No consumer wants to go to a website and click somewhere in the header and then have the next page open up and it's different and it's different and the next one's different and they have to bounce around and try and relearn how the website looks. They'll just jet, they'll leave. Same thing with your footer. That's a static, so it's going to be applied to all pages. So when they design it, it's not going to change as you move site to site for the most part, unless you have a really custom website. It's just going to be the same. So you really want to make sure those two things are nailed down and perfect in order to be able to feel comfortable that that's used across the board. Next is your navigation. Your navigation, same thing. That navigation is going to stay pretty consistent as you move through the entire website. And the structure of navigation for a company that does air conditioning, heating, possibly plumbing or electrical or appliances, the bigger your list of services that you offer, the more important it is to really pay attention to the navigation and get that down right on the first run. Next is sliders. Sliders is this section above the fold, which is usually a giant area. It usually takes up the whole screen, and that has flexibility. So you're able to design various sliders that can be used for different kinds of the year. So if you've got air conditioning related sliders, heating related sliders, maybe it's a promotion or a tax credit and so forth, all of those should not be running at the same time, but rather changed out throughout the year. Then you have call to actions. So call to actions, you'll notice on this page, there's buttons. They're clear buttons. They have an arrow. For this particular site, they happen to be red and black. And you might see call to actions like this, where it's a promotion or something, but you need to make sure that your site is plenty filled with call to actions. You don't want it overly done, but at least want to be able to try and drive some. Next, you're going to have text, images, and videos. Those need to be laid out on the site so that they're easy to navigate. And then finally, interactive tools. So in our world, we have a SARE calculator, troubleshooter, we have online quoting engines. There's a bunch of different functionality that we've created that makes the site more interactive. Next is interior pages. So again, on a sidebar on an interior page, that's typically going to show across the board on all pages. Then you're going to have body content, which should contain unique text. And then they got to style the pages. So styling, it means that they're going to strip the code from the old site, style it and make it look good, whether it's heading titles, different colors, maybe it's list items or bullet points and so forth. Pictures and infographics you can never go wrong with unless you use too many of them in one space or on the home page, because it'll slow the site down. But this really helps consumers be able to identify a process or a comparison so that they can make a decision. Next is video. That's a must. Google's putting more weight on those websites that have video integrated into them. We just need to be careful that it's not directly on your home page embedded into your website, because it can take longer for the website to load. So you just want to be cautious about where. Next is promotional graphics and images like this one. Same thing. We want to have a page that has all of them in it, even though you might have a couple rotating on the front page. Call to actions, and we go into your blog, which is the dynamic area of your website where you can add unlimited content, and that also needs to be designed as well. It's important that we understand that your design layout is going to eventually require code, a developer to create it. So what I've always stressed with my company is to my own team is, as a creative person, you're going to want certain things from a design standpoint. But I'll tell you, if a developer, a coder, or an SEO engineer comes in and says, don't do that, it will cause blank not to work or be effective or produce as good a result. My recommendation is listen and agree, because there's just certain things that we're all not going to know, not being a developer or a search engine engineer, that they need to be top priority. In addition, the design of the site, the development of the site without text, content, pictures, graphics, video, functionality. Technically, the website is done. It's designed to development, but it's empty. Because if you don't have text and pictures in all of these boxes and spaces, you've got a really empty website, even though they're technically done with design and development. Call to actions. You'll hear me talking about that a lot in our calls. Is we gotta convert consumers and prospects. We gotta get them to move, and they respond differently. Schedule service, request an estimate, apply for financing, sign up for maintenance, click to call, request a quote, service areas, 24/7 emergency service, we're hiring, read our reviews, we're different, troubleshoot it, online chat, SEER calculator, calculate your savings, promotions, discounts, tax credits, rebates, subscribe to our newsletter, sign up for text promotions. So you kind of get my drift. Throughout your header, footer, sidebars, inline text, and inline blog, as well as the home page, we should have call to actions. Not just have them, but also be testing them to determine which ones convert better. Of course, we've got a nice sized petri dish with a lot of dealers that we're able to test on, so you can always get some advice from people that have the data and experience to provide tribal knowledge. Next is coding. So we've done the design, so we've committed to the process, identified what we want to buy, then we start with design, now we're in coding, and this passes to a different kind of person. So programmers and designers, they are not the same. Designers are creative, they dress nice, they probably went to art school, they decorated their house and the garages for cars. When it comes to developers, the garage is actually a living space. They work totally different hours. And a pair of Birkenstocks and ripped jeans might just be perfect attire for a business meeting. They are, jamming out to some techno music or whatever they listen to, and they're going to town. And you're looking at this chunk of code and seeing something totally different. There are a lot of different kind of technical resources. You're going to need someone who is a database engineer, a server expert, front-end developer, back-end developer, custom app developer. And then at some point, the website's going to go live, and you're going to need a website administrator, and you're going to need support and security and hosting and maintenance and an analyst. All of these different types of expertise, they usually don't come in one body. These are a lot of different people, and you only need a small percentage of all of their time during and after the project once you go live. So none of us, myself included, we can't get the best, but we should get the best we can. And when I say we can't get the best, that's just because I'm real. Because there are better developers out there that are more expensive, and they're working on different kind of projects than a small business project. So there are always going to be issues when you run reports. It's going to look like there's problems, and it, like I said, it just depends on how much time you spend on it, so you don't want to get too caught up at it. Now, when you look at different kinds of websites and technology, all a coder is they'll code in a language. and languages change from developer to developer. So when you look at a website, you might see this pretty picture on the front of the site. When a developer sees that website, they don't. They see code, and that's what they're looking at. And you want that person, because that's a big deal. You need that. So code is a language. That's what developers do. They code. Web apps are pre-coded. Maybe if you have a plugin or something on your website, that's a web app that's pre-coded. Coding standards evolve over time as search engine requirements change, as new devices change how things need to render. So you can't get stuck with, I bought a website and that's it, because the technology behind it is going to change. Search engines read code first. So if we know, I just got done doing a training, I'm out here in Baltimore right now, and I asked the group the same question as always: how do you guys buy? And they say, I go to Google, I Google it. And I say, great. And when you go to Google, what do you click on? How many of you click on the ads? No one raises their hand. How many click on the maps? Everyone raises their hand. Great, that works in this city if they have an office. How many of you click in the organic spaces? Everybody's hand goes up. So if you know consumers are looking on the internet and you gotta please Google in order to get in front of people to have a shot at some new business, it's important to understand that that's your middleman. If you don't please Google and do the things Google wants, then you can't get to customers. It just doesn't work that way. Code is complicated. So when somebody's building a website, they're not developing one website. They're developing hundreds of them. They're developing all of the style sheets, the responsive coding, so that website renders on mobile devices, a 7-inch tablet, 12-inch tablet, 10-inch tablet, 4-inch tablet, on a phone, even, you know, to be able to render in the front of somebody's refrigerator because of all the smart refrigerators that are coming out and everything else that's smart. Code can make or break you. It can make or break the design as well. Code can help or hurt the content as well as the rankings. And if you let it sit out there too long, it's just going to stop working because search engine standards change, but the code remains the same, and therefore you have less benefit from that. Whereas if you keep your website updated in the latest and greatest technology, then all of your marketing efforts are going to have better results because you're not operating a website with older code. So other thing is the longer the code has been out there, the more that all of the bad guys online start to learn how to get in there. That's when hackers can start hacking it, is because the site's old. It's been out there a long time. You know, they kind of tend to share stuff online. So when one of them gets a hold of a certain kind of site, then they figure out how to hack it and do something with it. They share it with everybody else. So you don't want to stay in old technology. Now, as far as the different kind of sites, as entrepreneurs, you know, we usually go through a series of trends when it comes to building our business online. When you first start off, that's your DIY, do it yourself. Then you realize that's hard, so you start looking for a triple F, friends, family, and fools, and they will typically hand code the website, which is straight HTML. It's flat. Problem with an HTML site or somebody creating an old school website, pre-content management system, is you can't edit it. You can't change it. You're always going to have a developer in order to make that change. So then often people will graduate to the WYSIWYGs, which is platforms that promote free, fast, simple, easy, cheap, and you have the ability to jump in and build your own site. This is the DIY version using GoDaddy Site Builder, Weebly, Web.com, and so forth, Wix, GoDaddy, Zoho, and so forth. So you'll find out real quick once you've done a couple of these whether or not you should have done this. And usually it's not the cost of the website that's the problem. It's all the time you put into doing it and the time that the website is not performing. So Finally, there is more of an advanced kind of a website, which is a content management system. WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Magento, these are your top content management systems. WordPress being the #1 content management system. The great part is this allows you to take control of your website. There are millions of developers coding on these platforms. They're open source, and so you have a tremendous value, perceived value right out of the gate, because it comes pre-built for search engines and for the majority of the internet service providers and so forth, different size devices. It's in HTML5, works on mobile responsive, and so then you just have to have the design applied to that content management system, which is a lot easier. This is the big boy website. All right, let's move into content. So content's pretty simple. If your website is your retail store, content is your products. What do you want to sell? Who do you want to sell it to? Where do you want to sell it? So not having content is like not having the product in the store. So if you want to sell AC repair in, like right now I'm in Baltimore, then you got to have a page, AC repair Baltimore, AC service Baltimore, AC installation, AC replacement, AC maintenance, tune-up inspections, and so forth. Same thing for heating. When other places you're going to need content is in the headings, the excerpts, your About Us page, why choose us, maybe on your promotions page, as well as your maintenance agreement. What are the value propositions for signing up for your maintenance agreement? And then over time, you're going to want to start including blog content, such as educational articles, informational, comparisons, FAQs. You know, if somebody says, how do I replace, or should I replace blank? That's what they're asking online. They're going to be asking you in person. So we want to make sure and have that content. This is what I mean by never done. There's no website. If I pull up, I love this Energy Works website, but if I pull it up, the content is, they need more content. Next is custom. So to make things interactive, you want to be very careful. You can make a website interactive, but you can also hurt a website by making it too interactive. So on our sites, we tend to have the stair calculator, troubleshooter, online scheduler. Some of our dealer sites, we have live chat. Some we have a knowledge-based file sharing system, the ability to calculate your payments, videos, social, surveys, competitions. There's a lot of things you can do on a website. You just want to be careful. I've got some warnings over here. They do increase your investment. You're going to pay more for lots of bells and whistles. You don't want to put too many of them on the home page because it's going to slow the site down waiting for the widgets to load. And clients are impacted. It's going to take your project longer to get done. So if you're trying to get your website done and ready in the spring, in order to have it ready to go live and be good to go in the summer, you want to be careful that you don't add a bunch of stuff that are going to slow your project down when, quite frankly, you could add those things to it after it goes live. So get it live, focus on engagement and conversions, and then later on add that other functionality. So next, I have a series of things just from a caution standpoint that I want to cover. It's really important to try and avoid these, and it's a lot easier to avoid a bump in the road if you know that it's there. So on the technical side, these are the things that can kill a project, kill a website's performance, ruin a marketing budget. One is too many design elements. So if the website's really long, this is a lot of containers. There's a lot going on here. The longer this website is, the more images and graphics and pictures and code and so forth that Google's going to have to render to pull the site up. So you don't want to overdo it, even though it's fun and you can fit more on a page and it's exciting because there's a lot of stuff on there. You want to keep it a little bit more lightweight. So you don't want to overdo design. Also, images. If you add 100 images, 50 images, 60 images, and they're larger images, or you have 5 or 8 or 10 slider designs inside the front of your website, all of those things, too many images, too large of files, too much code, too many containers, all of those things can slow a website's performance down, causing you to not see the performance you want on other marketing activities such as search engine optimization. Also, hard coding, changing a theme. You'll learn this one the hard way. I'll tell you, we did. When we first started, this is over a decade ago, our coders, they know how to develop anything. So we would be using a theme. They would make changes to it. Then when the theme updates and plugin updates and WordPress updates and all of your search engines and so forth all update, all of a sudden it's broke and it's broke and it's broke and it's already hard. So when you change something that can no longer be updated, it makes it even harder. Other things that are exciting to put on a website that are absolute performance killers, third-party apps, plugins, and widgets. So if you have any kind of third-party app on your site that's in the form of a widget or something that has to download, remember, if your website has a Facebook feed on the front of it, your website cannot load until Facebook loads. So if Facebook is having a high traffic day and is a little slower, your website's going to be as slow, if not slower, than whatever that plugin or widget is. So you don't want to put those on the front page of the website. I mean, you don't want too many of them on there. Same thing with iframes and embed code. You see that a lot from those review sites. Be careful. Duplicate content or lack of content. Both will cause performance errors. If you're spending money on digital marketing and you don't have content for the products and services you want to sell and the cities you want to sell them, it's not going to perform as well. Custom functionality can also do that. Prioritizing design over performance. Sometimes in lifetime, women are like this a lot. I have to say that because being one, we tend to get really particular about design, and it's like a crooked picture on the wall. The more I look at it, the more I don't like it, and the more I want it to change and change and change and change. You got to get out of that. It's over analysis paralysis. Remember, whatever you think about design, it's your personal opinion, your perception. And you don't only sell to yourself. So you don't want to compromise the performance of a website in order to test a design element that you love, but it might hurt your website, achieving its ultimate goal of acquiring more customers and converting more leads to cash. Withholding information from your marketing agency is a big one. When an agency is talking to you, when an agency is working on the evaluation and working on a proposal with you, if there is anything you have duplicate content, you have been penalized in the past by Google, your website has been attacked and it has security issues, your website currently has a virus on it, your website is insecure, anything you want to share that information with your web company. You don't want to walk down, kind of eyes wide closed and have them have to find out the hard way or the long way, because they would have done things differently had they known. So you really want to share. Don't withhold anything from whoever you're working with. You'll only cause yourself a headache later. Also, not having access to analytics. Every website should have analytics installed on it. This is Google Analytics and Google Webmaster. If you don't have it, there's nothing to compare performance to, so there's no time too late. Now is a good time. If you don't have analytics on your site, get it on there. That way you've got something to compare data to, and there's some history that can be grabbed and things to learn from that. Not having webmaster, reporting, history, so forth, and no ownership or access. That's a biggie. Not owning your domain name, not owning your website, not owning the platform that your website is created on, not owning access to your own social media accounts, your local accounts, your Google business listing. A lot of times small businesses, they want to let people help them, and so they'll let them go buy something for them. Quite frankly, you guys, you need to buy it if it's a domain name, or you need to set it up. They can help you, they can walk through, they can assist you in the process, but don't have your staff, your office managers, an intern, or marketing agency go set those things up from scratch unless you really trust them to give you ownership, and you want to be just really cautious. So I tend to approach this as a business owner, and as a business owner, I want to make sure that I protect my assets. So I have the same philosophy with you guys. I want you guys to protect your assets. Make sure that you have ownership. If you paid for it, it's yours. If you set it up, it's yours. That's really important. All right, personal killers. These are more personality things, quirks that can cause a project to just crumble or performance to be hindered. So first is initial knowledge transfer. If you go back to those onboarding forms, if you refuse to submit onboarding forms and to transfer that knowledge over your web team, they may know HVAC and they may know web, but the last thing you want to do is look like a general HVAC company on a general internet. So you got to transfer the things that make you unique, those things that are different. You know, it's what are your consumers used to seeing? Is it stucco houses? Is it brick houses? Are they siding, shingles? You know, what are the design elements that are important to make somebody visiting your website feel like they're at home? You know, that's important. Next is design opinions versus data-driven designs. Usually what will happen with a small business is you'll have a lot of design opinions, and those opinions, you know, will lead a company down a certain route. And at some point, if the opinions are really strong, the agency will actually stop giving advice because you obviously have, you know, you're determined about what you want, and you don't want that. You always want third-party opinions about, you know, things, other considerations, things to consider. It's kind of like putting your attorney and your financial planner and your CPA in the room. Let them duke it out. And out of all the stuff that comes out of all of their self-centered view of things, you'll come up with something cool. Okay? Next is a lack of experience or trust. When you move forward with the new agency, they're not your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, so they give them a, you know, give them a break. They're not all bad, just like contractors. It's the same thing. I talk to consumers. We do consumer focus groups all the time, and we'll sit a group of consumers down to do some interviews to get an idea on what we should do from, you know, our clients' websites. And the consumers will say, all contractors are going to rip you off. All contractors this, all contractors that. And I understand it's just a bad attitude because it's not true. We have the most amazing clients that are honest and trustworthy. Do they make mistakes? Yeah, heck yeah, everybody does. But they're honest, they'll fix them, they come to the table. That's their intent, is not to be malicious. Their intent is to do amazing things and to take care of their customers. So you just want to make sure that you don't pass that mistrust on, because it'll just create a longer project than it needs to be, focusing on building trust instead of building a really well-designed website. Same thing with focusing on the wrong things. You know, if an agency does a website for you and you've got this huge, there's 10,000 lines of code, there's 500 pages of content, there is mass amount of images on the site and metadata and so forth, and you see on the home page that there is a typo or misspelling or the wrong image next to the wrong product, don't freak out. just call them and work with them. This is a group effort. Part of this is you guys come to the table. They've been staring at the same site for a lot of time, and you know, they might need a little help finding those things. And you know, what I usually tell people is I see how they work with our project managers, and you know how I've worked with other companies who we hire, and a good attitude and being kind and nice goes a long way. You'll wind up actually getting more than you bought. Wind up, they'll never go back and look at the agreement if you're the nice guy that says, hey, I noticed some things are wrong. Can you go check this out or this out? So just work as a team. Next is communication delays and process. I think every company knows that you guys are going to get busy and need to go to work, so just communicate. If you need to take a vacation, you're not able to respond, work with them and let them restructure the plan so they can move that go live date out. Not knowing what's in plan is a big one. We talked about that earlier, knowing what is in your plan versus not in your plan. That's going to save you a lot of time, so you're not having to discuss it late in the game. So keep that front and center, so you know exactly what your expectations are. I've kind of talked about the overreacting to simple things, focusing on things you don't like versus things you want. So you want to take a proactive and positive approach to determining or sharing, I really don't like this, but here's a sample of something that I do like. So this boils down to collaborating, working together. Also making sure that your requests, things that you want from your project team, keep them centered. Keep them in their system and keep them in one place. That way they're not checking 5 different. This is a quick way to really cause problems, is if you're sending requests, text, chat, telepathy, horse and buggy, by plane, by mail, by paper airplane. Too many chiefs, same thing. If you have got too many people making the decisions, and that goes on both sides. Right topic, wrong person. So if you're talking to the person that answered the phone, the customer service person, about SEO, that might not be their gig. So make sure you get to the right department. They're not all going to know everything about everything. And then same thing with taking advice, asking for the right advice from somebody who should not be an advisor. That's always a struggle. And then not starting and knowing better. And these are our personal, everybody. We have this. This is why they have New Year's resolutions. I know I need to go to the gym, but I'm not going to. So it's the same thing when it comes to web. You need to, but because it's not a good time or you don't have time, you keep putting it off. Keep putting off, rebuilding your website or investing in more content or adding other digital marketing elements that are going to help you become an option to those consumers looking for what it is you sell, and the amount of time that is wasted and how far you wind up getting behind year over year over year. And that one's always a personal struggle. And I think that's across the board for way more than websites. So I wanted to make sure you guys have direct access to our sales org. This is our strategy team. You can grab your phone right now, snap a picture of this. There's the states that they represent are underneath their email addresses. We have Clay Howard, Tom Miller, Lisa Turner, and Ms. Beverly, and they're all ready and able to help you guys. First thing I would do with them is sign up for a strategy session and digital evaluation. You can give them a call, send them an email, go directly to ciwebgroup.com and submit a request for a digital evaluation in the top right corner. Or you can chat with them. A lot of times they're available on our website. If they're not in meetings, we've got a chat right at the front. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, use the chat. Maybe you've attended a webinar, this one or one from a prior library, and you've just got quick questions. We're here to support all of the Goodman and Manna dealers and help you guys make progress. That's really what we're looking for as business owners, is every piece of information you learn that can help you make a better decision, make a different move, and get a better result next year, next month, next quarter, this season, summer. We're in. So make sure you use the team for that. That's what they're here for. And with that, I want to just thank everybody. Appreciate it. You guys sign up for a free strategy session and digital evaluation with our team. And let's rock and roll and make it an amazing summer.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. So just a couple quick reminders. If you have any questions, use your chat box. We'll be happy to answer them for you. You will receive a follow-up email a little bit later today with a link to this recording. As you do with every webinar you register for, whether you're able to attend or not, you do receive that email about 2 hours after the webinar ends. In the body of that email is the link to the recording. This will also be posted out to Partner Link, which is going through some changes. So if you need help, locating recordings out there, you can always reach out to me at Goodman Partners Network at goodmanmfg.com. I'll be happy to help you locate them. And then the last thing I wanted to say is there is a post-webinar survey, so definitely feel free to let us know how we did. We do always look forward to your feedback. Jennifer, I love this slide with your team on it. That's great. That's really cool. So I do not have any questions waiting, so I wanted to see if you had anything else you wanted to say in closing today.
I think everybody should go through an evaluation multiple times a year, even with our existing clients. That's something we stress. I think I always tell everybody we're like the personal trainer you kind of wish you didn't hire, because we're pests when it comes to, can we meet? Can we have an evaluation? You want to determine what's working, do more of it. What's not working, reallocate it to something that is. And what's next? What are you not doing that you need to be doing? And if this is on the list, we'd love to help.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. We always enjoy hearing from you. And for everyone who joined us, whether you're here live now or later on the recording, we do appreciate your taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you've got a lot going on as well, but glad you joined us for an hour. So we do look forward to talking to you on the next webinar. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.